Hey, this is Idea Coach East for Coach East Rome. Win on the weight classes for UFC Fight Night 26, headlined by the main event with Shogun versus Sonnen. I'm going to break my normal format, and we're going to be talking about a couple of preliminary fights, the co-main event, and then the main event. Let's get into it. And the welterweight bout, Pyle versus Matt Brown. Now, this is an interesting fight right here. I don't expect this to be fight of the night, but I think this is going to be very intriguing on how their careers are going to take off from this point. Outside of the Brock Larson loss, everyone that Mike has lost to in the past 6 years were or are the top 5 to 7 welterweights in the world. He's going against Matt Brown, who is on an amazing run. 5 straight wins with 4 of them being finishes. Now, you have to consider the fact that this guy, statistically speaking, should have been one of those ultimate fighter throwaways that, has about 4 fights in the UFC and then, is not with the company anymore. He's not the most graceful of fighters, and he's highly undeserving of the nickname The Immortal. By the way, I'm recording this on Hulk Hogan's 60th birthday. I've got Mike winning this. It sucks because 5 straight wins should mean more than just a blip in UFC history that will go unnoticed after this predicted loss. In the middleweight prelims, we have Uriah Hall versus John Howard. Now, this is a very losable fight for Uriah Hall. Similar to Felipe Nover, he was deemed as the next Anderson Silva, the next GSP, and ended up losing the finale of The Ultimate Fighter. Now, Felipe Nover is no longer reported at the UFC. He hasn't been so for a number of years, and his record is mediocre, not terrible. I'm not going to fight bash on him. Uriah Hall is an outstanding striker. As if you watch the show, you've seen it, and if not, please check it on YouTube. And instead of comparing him to someone like Anderson Silva so early in his career, I would probably say Uriah Hall is like the answer to Michael Page, another fantastic striker who fights somewhere in London. And I'm going to leave a link in the description for you to check that guy out. That guy's amazing, even though he does fight tomato cans and jobbers. John Howard is one of those fighters who, for the majority of his UFC career, he was actually a welterweight, and he's moving up in weight for this fight. Well, not this fight, but this time in the UFC. His record in the UFC is not excellent. It's, pretty much, I think, 50-50. But he's one of those guys with the wealth of experience that he has. He's just one of those guys like George Santiago who's been fighting in all these other different organizations. I don't think Uriah Hall's striking is going to put any fear or concern into someone who's a vet like Howard is. However, he's going in there naturally unsized, and the reach discrepancy should be enough to keep Uriah Hall on the highlight reel. I'm predicting second round TKO. And the fight that's going to determine how the heavyweights play out for probably December on to the next year, we have Travis Brown taking on returning Alistair Overeem. Now, I'm going to say this. Alistair Overeem, and no one said this before, not Rogan, not Goldberg, not The Voice, not other internet analysts. Alistair Overeem does not have game plans, even in his K1 career. He comes in the fight very aggressive, a lot of confidence. But at the same time, he stands straight up. His striking defense is subpar. I mean, even Fabricio Verdum was outstriking him in their Strikeforce rematch. And yes, you can say, he's a K1 champion. However, if you follow K1, you would know that he won in 2010. But the top guys in K1 in 2010 were the top guys in K1 in 2005. It was very stagnant. Travis Brown is one of those kind of fighters, man. If Overeem is not careful, he can get knocked out. Brown has a whole lot of KO power, and yes, he Bigfoot beat him, and Overeem is about the same physical size as Bigfoot, so that may come into play because he can't bully another heavyweight. But I'm going on the name of saying Alistair Overeem should win this fight. However, Travis Brown lands one of those punches, man. He's been knocking people out left and right with the one blemish to Bigfoot Silva. So I'm cautiously saying that Alistair Overeem will win. There's a lot of issues with him and the Blackzilians that he trains at the Blackzilians, but not with the Blackzilians. And that team, I'm sorry to say, has not lived up to his potential at all. The best fighter they got is Vitor Belfort, who's on TRT, but everyone else, including Rashad Evans, is really kind of putting on lackluster performances. Maybe Alistair Overeem is ahead of the curve by not training with those guys. Think about it. In the main event, we have the light heavyweight showdown, having Chael Sonnen face off against Shogun Hua. Now, Chael Sonnen is replacing Little Nogueira, who for some reason can't stay healthy. He's been with the UFC since 2009, and he's only had 6 fights. That's 6 fights in 4 years, folks. So, my issue with Nogueira is a little strange. I think maybe he should retire being this hurt this often, this late in his career, but that's for him to decide. Chael Sonnen is in kind of a weird position where his mouth has marketed him in a number of different fights in the past few years, but it seems that his skills or the matches he's taking are not favorable to him, even though he's still getting those paydays. Now, I don't fault the man for that, because if you look at where his career is at and what his career ambitions are or possibly could be, realistically speaking, that this is probably the best option for him, just taking big marquee matchups and main eventing, even if it means he has to switch weight classes and take a couple of losses. I don't think that Chael Sonnen's wrestling, even though he has some of the best wrestling for MMA this day and age, is going to really affect Shogun. Shogun has never really had a problem with wrestlers per se. Yes, John Jones, whooped him pretty bad and made him lose the belt. However, John Jones is just a physical beast. I don't think that Shogun was really on his game for that fight, and he is a Clark Kent Superman fighter. I think no matter what Shogun shows up this Saturday, I think he'd have enough in the tank to beat Chael Sonnen. Hopefully everything will work out for this guy and he'll be healthy and we can finally get the rematch everyone's been wanting to see for quite some time, having Shogun versus Minotauro Nogueira. Okay, guys, let me run down my picks real quick. I have Mike Pyle, Alistair Overeem cautiously, Uriah Hall, and Mauricio Shogun Hua. Share, subscribe.